North Carolina schools employ more than 100,000 full-time teachers in traditional public schools and public charter schools. In the 2018-19 school year, average teacher pay was $53,975, and average total compensation reached nearly $73,000 when you factor in benefits as well. Dr. Terry Stoops joins us now with a look at teachers in North Carolina and where kids are actually receiving their education. He, of course, is the Vice President for Research, the Director of Education Studies here at the John Locke Foundation. Terry, welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about teacher pay, because we are hearing and seeing all sorts of stories that teachers are not respected by North Carolina legislators, that they're not receiving adequate compensation. What's occurred over the past few years?
Well, let me break it into two parts. The first is the period between 2011 and 2014, when North Carolina was experiencing the aftermath of the recession and had huge shortfalls in funding for its Medicaid program. And during that period, the average teacher pay fell by $1,500, and part of that is due to the makeup of the teacher workforce, which we could get into, but most of that was due to the fact that the Medicaid program was consuming so much money. If you look at teacher pay since 2014, the average has increased by $9,000. So the average teacher pay in 2014 was around $44,990, and now we're getting close to $54,000 as of last year. During this entire period, the money set aside for benefits has increased substantially. This includes pension contributions from the state, the amount for health care. North Carolina pays Social Security for teachers, as well as liability insurance. There's a statewide liability insurance for teachers. All of this combined to increase the value of their benefits package substantially. So not only big increases in pay, but even bigger increases in benefits.
And Terry, I wasn't aware of some of that benefit data until you actually wrote about this. And by the way, all of this data is available at johnlocke.org. Yet we do have a narrative that's been established in North Carolina that there is a disrespect of teachers by North Carolina lawmakers. The data doesn't seem to match that.
It definitely doesn't. And the way teachers are paid is an important part of this story. Essentially, there's a statewide salary schedule that's based on credentials and years of experience. And all teachers get paid according to that salary schedule. So the worst teacher gets paid the same as the best teacher if they have the same degrees and same years of experience. There are local supplements that are added to that. So the local school districts or local counties via the school districts contribute some funds to that as well. I think the teachers that we're disrespecting are our best teachers who are subject to the salary schedule and are not paid according to their achievements or their abilities. Those are the teachers that are disrespected because they're getting paid the same as their lower performing counterparts. So you could understand why they would be so frustrated being in classrooms and teaching, knowing that they're doing a much better job than their colleagues, get paid the same or even less than some of their colleagues based on their years of experience and credentials.
That's such a great point. Is there any opportunity for a really outstanding teacher today in North Carolina to be able to receive compensation that really is in line with their effectiveness and student achievement?
There are small grants, essentially, that the General Assembly has passed in recent years for the teachers that do excel on state tests, for career and technical education teachers, for teachers who teach advanced placement courses and are able to get a certain number of students essentially passing the test for AP. The General Assembly has been mindful of providing funding for these small amounts of performance pay, but they're not very widespread. They're limited by grade and subject, and so that's one of the limitations to the way that teachers are paid. And certainly there is very, very little flexibility when it comes to what a school administrator could do to be able to pay a teacher more. So there has been progress in recent years, but there's such a big pushback on performance pay and incentive pay from those who frankly benefit from the fact that there's a statewide salary schedule, that it'll be very difficult for North Carolina to move to a system that pays teachers based on their ability and their performance.
I know that you have been urging policymakers to look more closely at those options, trying to keep those effective teachers in the classroom and compensated for their outstanding work. And then, of course, that takes you to the other side of the coin, which you would have in any business anywhere in this country, which is there are going to be some teachers who are less effective than they need to be. We also need to take a look at that.
That's right. And when we look at our teacher turnover data, it appears that the teachers that are leaving the profession are the less effective teachers, which is a good thing. We talk about teacher turnover so often as something that's terrible, but when we have bad teachers leaving the classroom, that's a win. That's a win for kids. It's a win for the classroom. It's a win for the school. It's a win for the district. So when we look at teacher turnover, we find that our least effective teachers are leaving. Unfortunately, our most effective teachers aren't getting paid what they should for staying in the classroom. And this is an important point, is that we should be paying teachers not because paying them additional funding, or our top teachers, paying them additional funding will make them perform any better. They'll perform just fine, but giving them the incentive to stay in the classroom and not pursue an administrative position or some other position to increase their pay.
Terry, let's turn our attention to how and where kids are being educated in this state. North Carolina, a huge state, of course, and we have been one of the leaders in the country in moving towards more choice, more options for parents. Give us a sense of where we are on that. Traditional public schools, are they still dominating the choice spectrum?
Yes, absolutely. So at this point, around 80% of our children go to a traditional or district school. And there are districts in the state that provide choices within those districts. So it's important to note that just because they're going to a district school doesn't mean that they don't have access to some sort of choice. But we have 20% that are attending schools of choice. 8% are going to home schools. Around 6% are going to charters, and 6% are going to private schools. We're seeing huge increases in the number of students that are being homeschooled and going to charter school. The private school population, despite having some private school voucher programs, really isn't increasing by much. Really, the growth in school choice that we're seeing is coming from the charter schools and the homeschools.
Yeah, those data points are really fascinating. Again, all of this available at johnlocke.org. Terry, homeschools, 142,000 kids. Public charter schools, 109,000. Homeschools, they're rocking it.
They really are, and their growth hasn't slowed. I think a lot of people expected that we would start seeing a leveling off, but there has been no leveling off of those homeschool students. And it looks like this year that the charter schools added around 7,000 kids compared to this point last year. So, we had 109,000 last year. It looks like at this point we have about 118,000 based on some preliminary numbers. Compared to this point last year. I think that 109,000 was based on the number of students at the end of the last school year. So we're seeing tremendous growth in school choice thanks to the General Assembly.
I'll tell you what, it's a really interesting look at not only at teachers, but students and where they're being educated, brought to us by Dr. Terry Stoops. He is the Vice President for Research for the John Locke Foundation, also the Director of Education Studies. All of his work and his data available at johnlocke.org. Terry, thank you.
Thank you.